Although good is subjective. I mean, some people might debate that.
Yeah.
Eh.
Eh.
Eh. Hello, Twitch.
Hi, Twitch.
Oh, there we go. And we are live! Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 149, we have a lot to tackle. We'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch, Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, reflect on Overwatch League Stage 1 Week 2, and break down the monster PTR patch featuring not only some major balance changes, but also hero number 30. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-hosts, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us live tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So, joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar, and Ed, you know, if only our dev and savior had waited just one more week to line this up with episode 150, because we have a monster patch that we need to talk about tonight. So the stars did not quite align. However, you know, it's been a pretty hectic week, both in Overwatch and Overwatch League. A lot of good stuff happening, but how has this past week been treating you?
Hold on. Let me pull up. Let me ignore you for a second and pull up my fantasy scores and see how well I did this week. Oh, that's right. I went 3-0 this week. Undefeated.
You still don't have your crown.
I still don't have my crown, but I fully expect when I win all 3 leagues that I'm going to get the Iron Throne delivered to me. And then I will be podcasting from the Iron Throne. But no, it's been a fun week, you know. It's the Apex, it's Destiny 2, Overwatch League, Overwatch, you know, it's the, you know, the quadtastic awesomeness of video games and watching video games and fantasy and doing all that fun stuff. So, you know, I'm loving life. My jerseys came in, rocking fissures tonight. I rocked the Godspeed last night for OWL by the numbers. So, you know, I'm enjoying it. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I've been playing a ton of Kingdom Hearts 3 and actually wrapped it up earlier, just before the show, like about an hour or two ago. So that was a really good time. I spent like 30 hours playing it, which is, as I mentioned pre-show, probably more time than I've ever put into my PS4 since I got one, like back when probably like the original Destiny came out, because I did get like the White Glacier one for the PS4 edition. But outside of that, you know, there's a lot going on with Overwatch League. We've been busy with that. Got a ton of podcasts and stuff. And, you know, it's just all around been a pretty solid week. And we got some other games that I'm looking forward to on the horizon, like Dead or Alive 6, which is releasing this Friday. And of course, tonight I actually have a fantasy draft for our Discord, which I will be participating in. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that is going to shape up now that, you know, we're kind of like a couple of weeks into the season already. So I feel like the dynamic of the draft is going to be completely different than what we were kind of doing at the start of the season, just because, like, initially we all had a general idea, but we didn't really know 100% sure who was going to be on what. And in the current meta, you know, it seems like the Zaryas and the Zenyatas are the one racking up all of the points, but it's been a good week, and it's been a crazy one at that, so I don't want to bore everyone with all the outside the game talk, so let's go ahead and discuss Overwatch. So let's go ahead and jump right into the news. So a quick update for you guys on the competitive ladder. So we do have Season 14, which is the current season, that is coming to a close on Thursday. That is tomorrow, February 28th, and that is at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Now, this time around, there is 0 break in between seasons, so that means that Season 15 will begin exactly at 5 p.m. Or 4 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So, you know, February 28th. And in the past, we have seen there have been like days, sometimes even hours in between the off-season period. And if there's one thing that needs to be said, Ed, about this, it's the fact that the community has been wanting ranked changes, and this is not what the community had in mind. So I don't know what the point of having no break is, but it's just like we keep waiting and waiting for them to make some sort of update in regard to MMR or just how the rank system works. And then it just kind of seems like now it's just like a deadline. It's like, hey, make sure like you've done your placements at this point, and then that's pretty much the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who is expecting like a massive rank change in rank play this time around is, it's not something that's going to happen and then be like, okay, it's live the next day. No, that's not how it's going to work. I honestly don't see any problem. Like, people always say, and have been saying, why don't we get a break in between seasons? And my answer to that is, why do we need a break? Like, there's legit no reason why we need a break in between seasons. Like, are you in between seasons before? Were you just not playing Overwatch? Or were you doing quick play? Or were you doing non-ranked competitive play for some godforsaken reason? Or like what was going on? And if your answer was, well, I took a week or two off of Overwatch because there was no ranked. Well, they're a business. Like, if they see something where people are like, yeah, I wanted that so I didn't have to play this game for 2 weeks, then they don't want you to not play for 2 weeks. So, like, in all honesty, it makes sense. Now, taking into account a lot of things need to actually change with the actual rank and, like, the rank system, that's something for a whole different topic than there was no break between season 14 and 15. So, like, I have no problem with this. It doesn't matter to me. Comp is not my go-to place in Overwatch because it is so broken. They need to do a soft reset of some sort, and they need to get, role queues. I mean, I think the best thing I've heard so far is they need to get a queue or an SR for each class or role. So you have an SR for tank, SR for DPS, SR for healer, and then you queue for whatever you want, and it queues you based on that SR for the queue you did. That way you're not like, I've got 94 hours on Reinhardt, I'm going Mercy. Like, you don't have that stuff in your GM level games. So, but the no break, whatever. Deal with it.
Well, that being said, people are already kind of taking a break. I mean, we have seen some other games pop up that has definitely taken its toll on the competitive scene.
Yeah, there's this game called Apex. I don't know if you've heard. It's been doing fairly well, at least what I've been told. Mm-hmm. Only 25 million people within the first 3 days. So,
Yeah, and I will say, I haven't really been playing a ton of competitive this season, but I can only imagine how that has kind of impacted the queue times right now. And, there's a lot of talk about, role queue and how exactly that would work, or, trying to force a 2-2-2. And, if the LFG system and, Warcraft is any indicator, what's going to happen is you're going to have DPS players probably sitting around for 20 minutes waiting for a queue to pop. Tank players more than likely would be almost instant, with support probably being about a minute, I would say, maybe 2 minutes at the most. So who knows? But in the current grand scheme of things, we're already waiting 3 to 4 minutes in most situations, regardless of whether or not there is some sort of separate queue. So I feel like at the end of the day, we're always going to kind of be at that point where people are just willing to wait that extra couple of minutes in order to get a more balanced game, rather than having the kind of coin flip experience that has been rank play for quite a few seasons at this point.
Yeah, and honestly, and I'll flat out say this, and people may disagree with me, but tough shit. Um, I think the Overwatch League in itself is horrible for comp in Overwatch. Like, it has been a detriment to competitive games in Overwatch. And I say that because when we talk about the Overwatch League, we talk about GOATs, we talk about the meta. Well, GOATs in the meta are different for people that are in the Overwatch League. You shouldn't be running GOATs in comp unless you're, top 500, because the thing is, you're not good enough to run it competently. Like, I hate to break it to all you people out there that are running GOATs in like Plat and Diamond and stuff like that. You're not good enough for GOATs. It's not as coordinated. You're not playing it as well, but you see it being run in Overwatch League, so you want to play it in, your comp games. And that is frustrating people because they're like, well, I'm not getting the same results as, New York Excelsior running GOATs. No crap. You're not even remotely as good as them. Like, you can't pull it off. So yes, I think the meta, and there's nothing Overwatch can do about that because they want to get as many viewerships. But like, it's just you want to take those people who are like go into a Diamond or a Plat game and be like, we need to run GOATs, and just shake them and be like, stop it, we're not that good. Because GOATs takes a crazy amount of coordination. And most games don't have any form of coordination. Now, if you force the 2-2-2, that gets rid of GOATs and creates its own competitive or comp scene meta, but then it becomes, then it takes out the core of the game of being able to switch to counter your adversaries. And you're like, well, I would switch to this, but I can't because I queued as a DPS. Like, so that's the trickiest thing they have to work around is like, you don't want to force them to play 2-2-2, but everyone wants a role queue. I mean, remember the outcry when it used to be unlimited?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was chaos.
It was Winston, McCree, and Lucio 2-2-2.
I mean, like, I remember, and at that point, the game was just broken because you could stack Mercy damage beams, and I remember watching IDDQD go up against 6 Winstons, and it was him as Bastion with 5 Mercies. And he just melted the faces. And it's just like there's nothing you can do. That, and there was outcry switching from that to what we have now. I can only imagine the outcry people will go and be like, okay, we're forcing you to go 2-2-2. It's, it's a lose-lose situation for Blizzard. It really is.
I will say, like, if they do go the 2-2-2 run, I feel like from a balance perspective, that might put him in a better state. But at the end of the day, I feel like no matter what methodology Team 4 uses, people are going to eventually grow to hate it, because that seems to be what always happens, regardless of what the meta is or what it's defined to be or whatever the perception of the meta is. But there has been a lot of talk about that.
It's what Reddit, they hate what Reddit tells you to hate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, people hated Dive, and now they're clamoring for Dive. Like, make up your minds. Like, I get it. You want more diversity in the game, but you also want better comp, which would like basically create less diversity in the game by forcing 2-2-2. So it's an impossible situation for Blizzard to deal with, and I don't know how they can deal with it.
Well, I think people just want the removal of Brigitte, and, it's been like a year since we got a new support hero. Well, guess what, guys? We actually got a new support hero that is currently on the PTR. So this all kind of started with it's like a teaser, like a cryptic tweet from Blizzard that was on their, Play Overwatch account. And then that led to an origin story for hero number 30. Now, I will say I have heard the name of the hero pronounced like 18,000 different ways, very similar to Brigitte, and I'm not gonna like pronounce it differently every time I say it. And I know a lot of people are like, oh well, maybe the P is silent. Maybe
I'm calling him Baptize. That's just what I'm gonna go with. Because I'm gonna say it wrong. I'm just gonna be like, oh, Baptize.
See, like as someone that watches wrestling, I'm just gonna assume that it's Batiste. Because that just makes the most sense to me, and I know that I would not be able to stop myself from saying that. Well, anyways, we got the origin story for Batiste, and Batiste is another damage-oriented support with a heavy reliance on gadgets. So he hails from Haiti, and his name is, I don't know if it's a Jean or Jean. I'm assuming it's Jean. Batiste Augustin, and he's a combat medic. And he was orphaned during the Omni Crisis and would join a military group called the Caribbean Coalition. Now, Batiste struggled to adapt to life after the Omni Crisis had ended. Really, no surprise there. And Talon had basically went out to sought for his skills. So at first, Batiste was content with what Talon was doing, but realized he was pretty far in over his head with the mercenary group. And since then, he has gone away from Talon, and Talon actually has agents that are looking to hunt him down. So, you know, whether that is trying to return him to an organization or killing him for just having too much information on them, to what extent we don't quite yet know. But we did kind of get like that comic-esque storytelling with this origin story. I just want to get your initial impressions on the origin story before we kind of deep dive into the hero toolkit and everything that he's going to bring to the table.
I mean, it was an interesting like backstory. I honestly have zero interest in it because it's not compelling to any of the major storylines that we know in Overwatch. It was just like, he used to work for Talon, he doesn't now, he's a good guy. Like, that's basically the gist of his story, and there's nothing added to it. I mean, I'm sure there's more there, and we'll probably get more lore along the way, although Overwatch has done horrible at getting us lore on the characters or anything like that. But I still hold out hope that we're going to get more. And we don't. It's a character that we don't really know how he ties in to the rest of Overwatch, like how he ties into the other characters, really. So like a bridge between the two would have been nice. But I mean, it was very well done. You know, people enjoy it. He looks like a weird rendition of Reaper / Soldier 76 combined. Like, it's very weird. But, you know, I enjoyed watching it. I wish they would go back to the actual animated shorts, not these comic style shorts. But we've been saying that for 6 months now, 7 months. So,
well, they've always kind of done the origin story this way, and you know, the animated shorts are kind of their own separate thing. Then again, you know, like they talked about doing like seasons for the animated shorts, and we still quite haven't seen that actually happen. It is worth noting that we also did get a developer update from our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Kep, praise him. And, you know, we didn't really get like a ton of new information from the actual dev update. I just did want to note, though, like, I don't know if you got the same vibe that I did from Papa Jeffy Kep, but he kind of looked lifeless in a sense during that dev update. And it was so, honestly, it was very depressing seeing it. I was like, what is going on with Jeff? like
he's not even wearing, and this is something, like, not even wearing an Overwatch hoodie. He always wears an Overwatch hoodie. And he's just like, I'm wearing an all black one. And he he looks like he's been in meetings for the past 3 months getting yelled at. And then he's like, okay, I gotta go record this and look happy. Like, I get it. That's probably not the case, but like, it's a perception thing. Yeah, the developer update itself actually did nothing. It just told us about his kit. Like, almost at her. I'm gonna slip up at least once tonight. I know it, but that he basically just told us his kit, and that was it. And it used to be so much more than that. Now it's just like, okay, if this is going to be the developer updates from now on, we don't need them. Like, if you're just going to come up and like kind of read her abilities and go over how you think she goes into the game, that's what Reddit's for. Like, sorry, it's just, I want the days of when he comes on and does a developer update, like a community update or like stuff like that, like they used to do. We used to get developer updates like every 2 months. And now it's like, okay, well, we get one whenever we get a new hero or a new map. So, I don't know. It was okay. Nothing special. I think we just, as content creators, read into it a bit too much.
And for those keeping track, we are at 2 shots. No one's going to know what we're talking about except you and I.
What did I do? I said, no. Me saying I'm going to refer to him as her does not count.
I wasn't talking about that.
Did I call it stage 2?
No, you slipped after the fact.
God dang it.
Well, anyways, so yes, Jeff Kaplan did note about some of the abilities of the new hero, and we might as well just quickly do a quick overview and kind of share our thoughts on the overall toolkit of Baptiste. So, looking at the toolkit, I have to say, I was super conflicted when I first saw this. So, Baptiste has a primary fire that is a biotic launcher, which is a 3-round burst weapon. This I absolutely love because, for one, as someone that plays a lot of Soldier 76, I'm used to having that mentality of always shoot it in 3 to 4 bullet bursts, and to have that sort of control just on a primary for a character is going to be pretty potent. And then when you kind of add that to another ability, then it really starts to get a little bit out of hand. But for the alternate fire, we do have a healing ability. So it lobs a projectile that heals allies near the point of impact. So kind of very similar to a Junkrat lob grenade. The shift ability is regenerative burst, which heals Baptiste and nearby allies over time. And then for the E ability, there is the immortality field, which creates this field that prevents allies from dying. And this generator can be destroyed, it can be hacked. So keep an eye out for that. The ultimate ability is Amplification Matrix, and this matrix doubles the damage and healing effects of friendly projectiles that pass through it. So a lot of interesting things you can use with that. And then Baptiste also has a passive ability, Exo Boots, and when you are crouching, when you hold it, and when you go to jump, you can actually jump higher, so it gives you a little bit more elevation, so, you get a little bit of high ground control. So all in all, I honestly didn't quite know what to think of this toolkit initially, but a lot of that was just due to the fact that at the time, I didn't really see how it was played. When you kind of combine the burst potential of the 3-run burst, especially when you were behind, these matrices, you would do a ton of damage, and I feel like right now, what was kind of weird to me was, I know we were going to get a combat medic, but it's been a while since we've actually had just a straight throughput type healer. We keep getting these hybrids, and I wonder if we're ever going to kind of revert back to having a primary healer as opposed to someone that kind of provides a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, it's muted. It's a very unique. Everyone wanted the combat. It's if you haven't gone and tried Baptiste, it's one of those things where he is very hard to get a grasp on. Like, very, very hard to get a grasp on. And will be played wrong a large portion of the time. Because I know they designated him as a main healer, or they talked about Baptiste being a main healer. He's not a main healer because he won't be played as a main healer. He will be more used for damage. He's a Zenyatta. He's a new Zenyatta with a more interesting kit. And that it's going to be, you're going to see the Moira Baptiste combos, and they're going to do great together. But yeah, it's just, I like the idea of the combat medic and having to use actual skill to play Baptiste. Like, that's the big thing for me is if you look at the last few healers we've gotten, 0 skill is needed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and by skill, I mean like aiming or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like Moira, you hurl some balls and then you have your suction, which automatically locks on. It's not an aiming character. Baguette is hold your shield up and bash people, and then throw a heal every once in a while. Like, but this character will actually bring skill back to supports, because like Mercy is almost a no skill healer. Because there's skill to it. There is. Don't get mad at me, Mel. There is skill to Mercy, but when I talk skill, like, it's not about positioning and being able to escape. It's about like, okay, this person over here needs healing. I need to do that. And then quick turn around and peel off from the person attacking behind me. I need to hit a sleep dart from Ana. I need to have the perfect biotic grenade from Ana. Lucio needs to get the perfect boop. Something like that. Like, there's more skill in the perfect boop or the perfect sleep dart than there is flying to the right person at the right time. Like, there just is. And this is going to be like a whole new skill level for supports. I think he will be used quite a lot. And I think he will be in the meta. The only thing I don't know, honestly, is if he's going to make Goats stronger or Goats weaker. And that's where I'm confused, because we just haven't seen his gameplay played by professionals. And we won't until stage 2 when Baptiste is live, because they don't play and practice on the same servers that we do. They practice on old servers. So we won't know what this has. Like, people can assume all they want, and assumptions are worthless. Because everyone assumed after every nerf to Baguette that Goats was dead. Well, 5 nerfs in, what are we seeing all the time? Goats. Like, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I'm excited. I know I'm not skilled enough to play him well. Like, personally, I'm not skilled enough to play him well. And I'm scared for people around my level of playing for him, because I know they're not skilled enough to play him. And that's troublesome to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And as been mentioned, you're talking about Moira locking on. That doesn't actually lock onto the target. It's just the way the visual effect appears. I didn't really have a chance to play too many games with Baptiste. But I will say is, everyone knows, like, if I'm playing support and I try to play Ana, I am absolute dog shit tier on that hero. But when I tried Baptiste, at least when I'm healing, and not how I said healing and not actually going for the damage output, I'm a lot better at that lob shot as opposed to just a straight projectile shot like we would get with Ana. And when you're kind of combining everything in a toolkit, it's just really hard to tell where I'm going to be with this hero, but just from initial impressions, I would agree with kind of like where they're ranking Batiste as a high-skilled hero. And it's a case of really utilizing that your positioning, and the immortality field is really interesting too as an ability. I think it was like you can't get dropped below like 40 HP at that point.
Yeah,
which is completely unique. Like we haven't seen anything like that. It's kind of like a last stand ability for Overwatch, which is completely brand new, and I really want to see how that is going to come into play. And I remember there was a clip that I saw on Twitter where someone was on like Hanamura, in a custom game, and they had like the cooldown.
Yeah,
like the cooldowns were like reduced to like nothing, and they just kept spamming the immortality field, and they were like jumping off the map exploring, which I thought was hilarious. So the things that you can really do, I know like some people have already done like kind of the interactions with some of the abilities. Like for instance, as Sombra, you can actually hack the immortality field, and then if you have EMP, that removes not only the field but also the amplification matrix. And it's not something that you can like kind of deflect or anything like that. You can't eat it with D.Va's defense matrix. But I really like the idea behind this hero, just because it seems like I don't know if he's going to be primarily like a bunker type healer, but I could easily see him as one given his toolkit. So I'm not sure if it's going to be in 3-3, if it's going to be the death knell of 3-3, but we do know that they are kind of talking about doing further changes to impact that 3-3 meta. And for now, one of the most interesting things to me was the fact that if you get hacked and you have your regenerative burst going out, it doesn't actually stop the healing over time effect. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on if you were getting harassed by a Sombra.
Yeah, it's one of the things like you bring up, and even Spider in chat, and who I beat 2 weeks in a row in fantasy, mind you, brought up he's great in a Bastion bunker comp, but that is so easily counterable. Like, all right, let's look at the peer counters. Well, one, D.Va is going to be a counter. It is. Roadhog is going to be a counter. Doomfist is going to be a counter. Sombra is going to be a counter. Mei is going to be a counter. Like, there's a lot of counters to the bunker, to the Bastion bunker comp that everyone kind of seems to be going with. Like, and by the bunker comp, it's Orisa, Bastion, Moira, Baptiste. Those are the four key. And then, I don't know who else the other two would be, but he has a lot of counter ability, it seems right now. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. And his ultimate, while in theory is awesome, in actual practical gameplay is probably fairly hard to pull off. The best iteration I've seen and played with, actually with it, honestly, Reinhardt and D.Va. Because, like, Baptiste will put it up, you get a fire strike through there, then you get D.Va missiles through there. And that right there will break any shield, probably kill some people, and that's when you can start your push. Like, it's a push instigator, really. Because you can't be like, okay, well, let's hope the shield's down for the other side. Let's put this up and make sure our Widow gets a headshot. Like, no, that's not, ideal usage there. So it will be interesting. I know I saw Pine do, Reaper's ultimate right outside it and to shoot through it because the projectiles have to go through it. And he took out a whole team with it. Like, it was pretty insane. But, like, that can't be counted on in normal gameplay. Like, they set that up. So it'll be interesting to see. The indestructible barrier is pretty cool because the way you can throw it, like, yes, it has 250 health, I believe. and you can kill like the disc that's creating the circular indestructible field. It'll be interesting because you can place it in specific locations. So, like, for instance, I don't know if you've seen on Reddit, you can throw it underneath the payload.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't actually kill it. Which is nice. But, even if, let's say you throw it up for a Diva Bomb, for instance, your entire team's also still going to be at 48 health or 50 health or whatever it's going to be at. So then you need another ultimate on top of that to heal everyone back up. Or you can probably throw a Moira healing orb and use Baptiste's AoE heal itself if everyone's grouped up. But I don't know if that's going to be quick enough. So it'll be interesting to see how he... Dang it. I'm at 3 now?
Mm-hmm.
What was the over-under, 10?
Well, I'm not going to remind you, because then you're purposely going to try to...
All right, fine. Okay.
To overshoot.
So, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how he's implemented once he's actually live.
Yeah, so again, a lot of this is just early indicators. So once we have a little bit more time to check out the PTR, or, whenever Batiste does go live, we'll definitely kind of like go back and do a reevaluation of the character once we have a little bit more statistics at the ready. So definitely looking forward to whenever Batiste is on live and we get like the first Omnic meta report on how exactly he is stacking up against the rest of the field in regards to the supports. But let's go ahead and let's jump into this week's hot community topic. So we got a lot of like esports related hot community topics, and one of the major things that happened in the past week is going to like coincide with something else that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So there's been a lot going on with two-way player contracts in the Overwatch League, and basically what happened is when Boston Uprising were set to go up against the Shanghai Dragons, Fusions was marked as ineligible to play. Now, there have been quite a few updates to this story since. I know there was an update here, I think it was like yesterday, or maybe the day before, which I will make note of. But basically what happened was there was a ruling that kept Fusions from playing, and Overwatch League had released a statement regarding player eligibility for two-way players. They basically said that in order to preserve the competitive integrity of the 2018 Overwatch Contenders Season 3, and avoid a possible influx of Overwatch League level talent competing in the Contenders ecosystem prior to the 2019 Overwatch League season beginning, on September 19th, the league added a clause to its two-way contract rules, stating that two-way players who participated in the then upcoming Season 3 of Contenders 2018 could not play in more than 2 matches during Stage 1 of the 2019 Overwatch League season. Now, this is the first we've heard about this. There's been a lot of discussion about, what the communication has been between the league and the teams. Of course, to what extent we don't quite know. But what was really bizarre about this was a couple of things. One, Boston Uprising at one point tweeted out that they had promoted Fusions to the main roster. So we know that Fusions was on a two-way contract, and by the way they had the terminology for promotion, we all basically thought that meant, hey, he's got a standard contract. Apparently that was not the case. So the other side of the coin was that the league office did not determine that Fusions was ineligible until shortly before Boston's match was set to begin. So basically what this meant was, at the time, Fusions for the Uprising could not play the remainder of Stage 1, and the same could be said for Elk from Philadelphia Fusion, so they would have to wait until Stage 2 to compete in Overwatch League again. Now, Boston did undergo contract negotiations with Fusions, And he did get approved, so he is good to play for the remainder of this stage and further beyond that. And I know Huck was the one that confirmed that over on Twitter, but it was just like this really bizarre sequence of events where they were talking about this rule that no one really knew about, and then it just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and it just left the audience kind of confused with why we saw Axiom starting as a main tank after Fusion's kind of like really made a name for himself during opening week.
Yeah, it's one of those. It wasn't the best move on the Overwatch League's behalf, but the thing is like part of the blame also goes on the team, because obviously this would have to have been in the contract. So, like, if it wasn't in the contract, then they could have done this. Like, but if you're not reading the contracts you're giving to the players to sign, like, that's on you. Like, it's more on Boston Uprising and their just interesting as all get out staff and coaching staff and management that they have there than it is on the Overwatch League. Now, but the Overwatch League is the one who looks bad in this case. When in actuality, Boston is probably the one that's screwing it up, because they're not the ones fully understanding contracts that they're giving to their players. Now, everything worked out for Fusions. We haven't heard about Elk yet, but who knows if Philadelphia wants to play Elk anymore.
Not on that roll.
Not on that roll. But, I mean, the thing is they don't even need, like, for Elk in particular, they don't even need him on Fusion University. Like, they just don't. So it's like he's just the odd man out in all this, because there's no talk of him getting being called up full time. So he'll probably go back down to Fusion University and not come back up for a while. But the stuff with Fusions, it's nice that it got all worked out, and I'm sure the league and Boston were able to come to an agreement and figure something out. So all this would kind of go behind them. It was just a screwed up situation.
Yeah, and really, this was only going to impact Stage 1.
Yeah.
At least for this season. So I'm really anxious to see whether or not Philadelphia Fusion is going to release any information on what Elk's contract status is, or if they're in negotiation to get him that standard contract. But I would imagine after the Fusion's situation, that basically anyone that had a two-way player on their Overwatch League roster probably reevaluated what the current landscape was for their respective players. Now, granted, there's only a handful of two-way contracts in the league. You got Apply for the Mayhem, Elk for Fusion. You also have Gator from Atlanta Reign. But chances are, I can't imagine they're gonna give Gator a standard contract, especially with ATL Academy doing pretty well, and they kind of have to hold down their side of Contenders North America now that's kind of split into two different regions. But this is actually not the only news that we've had out of the Boston Uprising camp, because there was a little bit of spice, at least from the Boston Uprising owner, that being Mr. Kraft himself. And we kind of already covered this on OWLN, but we're used to kind of talking about some of the more risque things, and Robert Kraft basically got in trouble for going to a certain spa, a massage parlor,
a rub and tug.
And the part that really got me was the fact that they've kind of been scoping this place out, and he got pulled over, right? So the cop asked for his identification, wrote down a name, all of that stuff. And then the very next day, Robert Kraft goes back to the same exact place and then gets busted. What? Why? Why would you set yourself up like that? And two, the other side of it was I remember one of the articles saying oh yeah, he offered them $100. So it's just if you're gonna do that, why don't you just get your, he has the money, You know, you have the mistress. You don't have to go out of your way like during the day of like the AOC championship for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of those things that it's like, why would you go back?
I mean, all right. Personally, I always thought Robert Kraft was against people taking a knee. There's my joke on Robert Kraft for the night. But yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, if you follow this, because I follow football very closely, Adam Schefter was even reporting that Robert Kraft wasn't even the biggest name.
Right.
That got busted going to the same place. Like, what? Like, who's, like, I can, like, there's not that many people out there that I can think of that are like, okay, that's bigger than Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. Like, there's probably 25, 30 people in the United States, probably bigger. And I'm like, well, who's the other one? I'm like, oh, it's close to Mar-a-Lago. Is it Trump? And I'm like, well, that wouldn't shock me, but I don't think he can be charged with a misdemeanor while in office. And I'm like, all right, I don't see Bill Gates doing it. He just seems too weird. But like, I don't know. It's a whole screwed up situation. Now, granted, it's a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. Like, there has been a previous NFL owner, Jim Irsay, 3 years ago. He's the owner of the Colts 3-4 years ago. He got busted actually driving under the influence with also prescription pills in the car. And which in all aspect, to compare the two misdemeanors, Jim Irsay's is worse. Like, Jim Irsay driving under the influence of drugs, had drugs in the car. Robert Kraft went to a rub and tuck. Like, the Jim Irsay ones. Now, the punishment for Irsay was he got fined he got suspended 6 games, fined $500,000 by the NFL. I assume it's probably going to be something fairly similar to that for Robert Kraft. Maybe more because Goodell hates the Patriots because they're so gosh darn good. I mean, this is just another ring added to their Super Bowl rings, except this one's a prostitution ring. But like, as far as it goes with the Overwatch League, nothing's going to happen. Like, the Overwatch League is like, if the Overwatch League was like, we're suspending Robert Kraft from going to any of the games for one full season. He's like, okay, first off, where do you actually play these games? I've never truly been to one. Like, he probably doesn't even know much about the Overwatch League. It's just another investment for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, no action is going to be taken by the Overwatch League in regards to this situation. Because Robert Kraft is just kind of a money donator and not really, like, he's the face behind the franchise, but he doesn't have anything to do with it, doesn't go to it, doesn't do anything with regards to the Boston Uprising. But man, this organization, first you have, he who must not be named Casper. And now Robert Kraft. This is not a good organization to work for. But yeah, it's an antidote from our end because it doesn't affect the actual Overwatch League or the Boston Uprising. Because most people don't know he actually owns the Boston Uprising. So
no, for the most part, they do not. Well, that is not really like the only. Trying to think how I should describe this. Okay, so there's been a little bit of other, controversy in some fashion or another, and this one is actually a first for competitive Overwatch. So we've always discussed about, account boosting, win trade and things like that, and the lengths of player discipline that Blizzard takes. And this is going to be a first step in a different direction that we haven't seen yet, and that is permabans. So this is basically impacting Contenders China, where there was a wave of boosting bans that are going to have some pretty major implications on Contenders China in this upcoming season. So there are 12 different players who are receiving disciplinary actions, and we have an entire roster, that being Team Stop Feeding, who have been suspended. Now, one of those is a permanent ban from all Blizzard Endures tournaments, which is the first of its kind globally. And then the length of the bans spanned anywhere from a season-long ban all the way to a perma ban. And then you also have players from Team for Victory, Alter Ego, and I don't know how to pronounce this name, but it's CQUPT. So players from all of those organizations are also facing sanctions. So what's interesting about this is Team Stop Feeding. This is one that everyone is receiving punishment. They actually went undefeated this past season in Contenders Trials, where they did not drop a single map. They went 20-0-0. And due to them all getting suspended, they have another team who was also named in this, Alter Ego, who were the team that finished in third in Trials, getting promoted back into Contenders China in place of Team Stop Feeding. Now, here's the odd thing about this, is the fact that Alter Ego, out of these bans, have 3 players that are not going to be able to be eligible to play in the upcoming season. So they're in a state of, flux right now. And you kind of look back at how this team has done in the past, and in the last season of Contenders China, this is a team that did not win a single game. So, yes, some of your players are definitely going to be out. You're also one of the teams that got, relegated to Contenders Trials, and you barely made it through, and it was just based off of an entire team basically getting disciplined. So I don't feel like you can expect too much from Alter Ego from this, but this is the first time we're seeing a perma ban, so it's very interesting to see that we're finally getting to the point now where this has even been in the discussion, because for the longest time, the most we saw was 30 days for Sato for account boosting, from the Philadelphia Fusion, and maybe a Contenders season was the larger end of the scale for punishment, and now we are seeing a perma ban. So it really opens up the gates to the severity that we can see moving forward.
What the hell did they do? I know it was account boosting, but like you said, Sato got a 30-day suspension, and he was the ringleader and organizer for an account boosting group. So if that's worth 30 days, what did you do to get a permaban? Did you boost these accounts, then punch their mothers in the face? What is going on over there? Now, it could be just an escalation of, we're seeing more and more account boosting, and we want to make stiffer punishments. So it may be the same as Sato, it may be less than Sato, but they want to kind of boost okay, that wasn't as much of a deterrent. Let's boost up the damage, the suspensions, and hopefully this will. But if we don't know what those caused those suspensions and permabans, it's not going to deter people, because people are going to be like, well, they obviously did something just horrible and uncomprehendable to get permabanned. And when in actuality, it could have been yeah, they were doing the same thing Sato was. They just decided to up the punishment. So it will be interesting. Chinese Contenders has not truly been a hotbed for, a massive pipeline of players coming into the Overwatch League as of yet. Like we do have good ones. It's not anywhere close to like Korea or NA or even EU at this point. But I don't think this is a detriment to the Chinese contenders scene because it wasn't. It was the contenders trials teams that got in trouble, not actual teams that qualified for contenders from the previous season, if I understood that correctly. So it's not like I think 6 that automatically qualify. These are the ones who went to trials and competed to get into contenders. And they were the top 2 teams basically that got suspended. So it's kind of like, God, I can't even remember who made it in for NA trials this year. But like it's like the top 2 NA trials teams getting suspended. Yes, it doesn't look good for the league, but it's not detrimental to the league. It just seems like a massive punishment. So it's good. They need to crack down on it before it gets like out of hand, because at a certain point people will stop doing it who want to turn pro, because they're like, if I do this, I could get permabanned, then my Overwatch career is over. So good for them. I wish we knew more information about the suspensions and the permabans, but I feel we will never get that.
Well, all I'm going to say is it's not worth the 25 Blizzard bucks that you might have been able to get in contenders. So
they could have gotten some sweet loot boxes though.
Of duplicates.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they could have turned them in for Overwatch League skins.
I kind of feel like with
the
this,
teams they'll never play for because they got suspended.
Yeah, like my major takeaway from this is it kind of felt like, hey, this is an entire team doing it. Ergo, we don't trust any of you, so let's just start with the guy that was probably behind it all. We got rid of him, and then everyone else can sit in a corner for like a season and think about what they did, and then maybe they'll reform. No, they won't. They'll go back to doing it, and then maybe they too will get permabanned moving forward. But it's just crazy to think that we've gone from a couple of games in Overwatch League. Well, we went 30 games to a couple of games to now a permaban. Who knows where this is going to lead into the future, but I don't think this is necessarily going to detract people from wanting to do it. Probably only because this didn't impact one of the... I'm not going to say, like, not one of the bigger regions, because China is a pretty big region, like, population-wise, but it's still not quite to the same extent coverage-wise that we see for NA, for EU, and for Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if it was one of the other regions, it might have would have made like a bigger splash, so to speak.
Well, it would have, because like the names would have been honestly just more recognizable. Mm-hmm. And the more recognizable names you have in these situations, the bigger deal it is. And they just the biggest name in all of this was the guy who benefited the most from the first 2 teams getting suspended, and that's Freefeel, the ex-Shanghai Dragon player. He is part of the team. Oh God, forgot the name of the team already. The one that was in 3rd place, but now gets to go into contenders because they the top 2 teams got kicked out. So like he benefited the most, and that's the biggest name in the whole thing. Like, so if it was NA, EU, or Korea, it would have been a way bigger deal. Although in Korea, they probably would have gone to jail too, because I'm pretty sure it's illegal over there.
They probably would have had to walk home too, because that's also kind of a staple thing in Korea whenever you lose. And if you're going to be like completely out of the entirety of the season, I can only imagine how long of a walk that is going to be. But let's go ahead and shift gears and talk a little bit about what is going on in the Overwatch League. So, we just wrapped up Stage 1, Week 2, and we got a couple of roster additions to a couple of different teams, both at the flex tank position. So, you're not wearing the pink and blue tonight, so, I can't use that for a segue, but we are starting to see the Spark try to bring some new life to the team after they started hot and then cooled off in week number 2. And they have turned to someone that they were scrimming with going into the Overwatch League season. So Hangzhou Spark have turned to ex-Fox's DPS player, Sassin, to add some additional firepower to that roster, and he will be making the move over to Flex Tank for the Spark. Now, rumors basically began circulating here in the last week when a picture of the Spark and Sassin appeared on social media. And going back, we've seen Sassin scrimming with the Spark. Lately, he's also been duo queuing with one of the Spark's main tanks in Guxue. And this is a team that still has another flex tank on the roster outside of Rhea. They also have Risa. And the last time we saw Assassin was in the 2018 Contenders Korea Season 2, when he competed with Foxes, who at the time failed to make the playoffs. So, Ed, I know you and I both have a pretty close eye on the Hangzhou Spark. It's been a roller coaster. Week 1, really good start. Week 2, some pretty inconsistencies. So,
yeah,
where are we gonna go from here? Do you expect this to kind of be maybe a comfort pairing for Guxue, or do you think something else is at play?
I consider this a 100% comfort pick. I compare it totally to, all right, so if you remember with the LA Gladiators last year, they bring in Void to pair with Fissure, and that was a comfort pick, that somebody who to bring in and deal with, not deal with, but work with Fissure, who has worked with him previously. This is a Guxue comfort pick. And it's just one of those things where, do I think he's going to start over Rhea? No. I think Rhea is a pretty good diva right now. By no means is he awesome, but people just love him because of his Rhea bombs. He's the new Poco. So, and you said there was another flex on the team? Mm-hmm. I'm actually not seeing another flex on their active roster.
So it changed it.
Yeah, I'm on the Liquipedia page right now for the Spark, and Sassin is the only flex tank behind Rhea.
Interesting. Okay, whatever.
So, but the thing is, if you're looking at off tank, you're looking at D.Va or Zarya, and Godsby is right now their Zarya player, and Godsby's been doing pretty well on Zarya. So you're not bringing Sassin in to replace Godsby, because Godsby is probably, when in a non-GOATS meta, Godsby is probably the star of your team. He's your superstar of the team. And he's also one of the best players on the team. So you're not taking him out, but you might see some more if they want to run dive comp on a map. I think Guxue on Winston, Sassin on D.Va for a dive comp would work out well. They could just bring in Sassin for, the next stage. Something like that. But I don't see Sassin really getting a whole lot of playtime. But it's nice to bring him in to work with Guxue and play with Guxue, because I do, after a lot of watching the Spark, I do think Guxue is the better tank of the two. No Smite is probably stronger at just pure Reinhardt, but if you take Reinhardt and Winston into account, Guxue is probably better overall. So I don't know. Maybe this is a sign of that Rhea is going to get benched for Sassin when Gushue's in, and it could be something like that, which would be fine with me, because you need your tank line to be, in tow with each other. So it should be fun. And maybe it will normalize this team because they look rather lost this week.
Yeah, and I will note that was 100% a typo in my notes. So that was the Ron Burgundy effect.
Ron Burgundy?
Right?
So wait, is it a Ron Burgundy or is it a Slambo? Like, because I totally noticed Slambo, and he caught himself this week where he'll be like talking, but then he'll be looking at a different team's roster, and then he'll like start talking about that team, thinking he's still talking about another team, and I'm like, where are you going with this one, Slambo? I don't know what's going on.
You gonna get back on track?
Yeah,
No, we'll just keep riding this.
Yeah, all right, there we go. All right, go further.
What are you working on there? Working on that novel?
Yeah, working on that novel.
Well, anyways, this is not the only team to go out and pick up another flex tank, because the Florida Mayhem have also went to sign a flex tank of their own, and they have turned to a familiar face, at least in Contenders North America, from a Team Envy, that being none other than McGravy. Oh my gosh, it's about damn time. I mean, you and I have been waiting for McGravy to get picked up. We're like, where is he? Where's McGravy? Where's Gods? And now we at least have one of them. So we're used to OWL bringing the sauce, and now we got a little gravy on top for the Mayhem. And McGravy played for Team Envy in all 3 seasons of Contenders 2018 North America. So this move gives the Mayhem a second flex tank. Yep. Their starter right now has been Zephyr. And the sign also brings the Mayhem's player count up to 10. So, I have to say, the Mayhem, we didn't quite get the look that we were expecting from the Mayhem kind of going into the season, which has kind of like really changed my outlook on the team. I still don't quite know what to make of them, outside of the fact that, it's pretty safe to say that regardless of like their roster, you probably have them, probably anywhere from like 15 to 20 in your power rankings.
But they beat the Fusion, and the Fusion beat the Spitfire. So that means Mayhem's better.
We're not using that backwards ass logic. that's
Reddit.
That's not how that works. Reddit will tell you anything, and you'll be gullible enough to believe it. But Zephyr, Zephyr, we were having, we're like, okay, he's away from Seoul, where he didn't really see a ton of play time, because it was kind of like handcuffed to Zunba. Maybe he'll look good in the Florida Mayhem. And it really hasn't been the case. So really across the board, McGravy is going to be a pretty big sign-in. And it's important to note that for a lot of these teams that are mixed roster, a lot of teams are actually communicating in English. So it's not like there's going to be a very hard transition on the communication aspect of it if they were to just go out and start McGravy out of the gate, or just start to incorporate him here and there. So I'm really excited for it. Hopefully he'll be the fit that this team needs. But at the end of the day, I think Florida has kind of like met what our expectations were for them, which granted was set pretty low. But I have to say, like, I've been really surprised with just the roster that they've kind of put together when it wasn't quite who we had in mind for the actual starters on that roster.
Yeah, no, they totally have. Like, I love the McGravy signing. There are 3 tanks going into the offseason that we were ranting and raving about, and we need to have them in the Overwatch League, and that's Panker with the Gladiators, Beast Halo, who didn't pop up until 2 weeks ago, and is with the Fusion University again, and not in the Overwatch League, which baffles me. And McGravy, those were the 3 tanks or off tanks that were from NA that were they need to be in the Overwatch League. McGravy was probably the best diva in NA Contenders last few seasons actually. And the fact that he just was nowhere to be seen was insane. And the perfect landing spot for him was for his parent team, because the Dallas Fuel had Team Envy. Okay, well, their diva's Mickey. Mickey is not the best anymore. So, like,
Well, he's not their diva anymore.
RCK, they signed RCK, but like
Mhm.
before they signed RCK, McGravy were like, okay, this is an obvious call up. Like, they're just gonna bring McGravy up and play him, and then they didn't, and then we're like, where the hell did he go? But yeah, the Florida Mayhem have been sneaky on how good they've been. They are quietly coming up with a very, very deep DPS roster. Like BQB is becoming an unsung hero in Overwatch League. He really is. He's like one of those DPS that you don't know who it is, but you know, like, he will destroy your team. You have Tavik, who's kind of coming around a little on his flexibility, but then you have Saya Player, and then you have Apply. Like, Apply is no slouch in himself. So, and I mean, you have Hagupen on Zenyatta, who's been playing pretty well. Like, the team has skill. They're just not putting it all together. So, McGravy, being the shot caller that he is, because we know that he's a very vocal, very loud shot caller, they bring him in. He could do wonders for that team, because I don't know who the actual shot caller is. Because it's not going to be Tavik. Tavik he's just not a shot caller. His personality doesn't fit it. And if they're doing everything in English, well, McGravy's probably your best option. Because, well, he speaks English, like, as his native language, where most of the roster probably doesn't. So if they're communicating in English, you bring McGravy in to replace Zephyr, who I think they should replace. Like, Zephyr is just, their tank line is just bad. Like, they need a new main tank too, but that's a whole another story. They sent Beast Halo, all bets are off. But, McGravy could be the shot caller, starting off tank, starting diva for them, and I think it could do them some good.
I would love to see Beast Halo get the nod, but at least now we know that he's just not in contract hell or wherever he was for that month's period, or however many months it was. Well, we do have one other bit before we talk about some of the takeaways and preview this upcoming week of Overwatch League. And that was a pretty historic moment, at least for one particular Overwatch League franchise, that being none other than the Shanghai Dragons, who, after 42 losses in a row, longest losing streak in sports franchise history, they broke it. They beat Boston Uprising. Boston Uprising were without fusions. Axiom was pulled on the main tank spot just a couple of minutes before the actual game. We saw Gagiri play one map and get subbed out the rest of the series, and Shanghai came out on top. And there's been a lot of talk about like how that win kind of came to be, and whether or not you should take anything away from Shanghai just due to the fact that Fusions wasn't in. But it was definitely a moment that weighed heavily on the community, which is what we basically expected. Obviously you kind of had, the camera panning out to the crowd. You saw a couple of female fans that were in tears, literal tears in the crowd. And I know like a lot of the crew that was in the arena all took like, a photo next to the Shanghai Dragons win on the scoreboard, but they didn't actually have like the Overwatch League photographer there for the moment, which was like another talking point that I saw. I guess they just had the day off or whatever. It just wasn't on that week. So they didn't really have like something to like capture that moment, which I'm not gonna say like it's the end of the world by any means, but it would have been nice to just have something to like set that and have like actual pictures taken, because for a franchise that hadn't picked up a win yet, this is gonna be something that this this group of fans is going to remember, because everyone remembers you break in a streak, whether it's a good streak, a bad streak. And I just hope for the Dragon's sake that they'll be able to build off of this momentum. The problem is they kind of have a date with the New York Excelsior for their next match. So they're gonna start building another streak, and it's gonna reset. So
Yeah, right. It's one of those things where like, okay, it's awesome. It's totally awesome they won, and that was a very special moment. But the thing is they had so much of the fan base behind them because they were losers. Like fans loved the Shanghai Dragons because they hadn't won a game. And they wanted to cheer for that team that never won to win a game. But now that they've won a game, they're just another crappy team in the Overwatch League. Like they're a bottom 5 team that has a win. They're no different than the Florida Mayhem or the Houston Outlaws or the Washington Justice don't have a win, but like there's nothing really truly separating them. They just have a win now. So they went from like, hey, these are the lovable losers to, all right, well, they're bottom tier team. And so I think after this past week, you're going to start to see a lot less fanfare around Shanghai because now it's going to be, let's find a new lovable loser team. Like, I don't think it's going to be the Washington Justice because it just doesn't have the appeal of a lovable loser. Honestly, the lovable loser right now is probably going to be either the Mayhem or the Outlaws. Like that's who it's going to be now, and people are going to start. You're going to start seeing an uptick in the Outlaws or the Mayhem or something like that. So good for them. Good for Gaguri, because she's really one of the only holdovers from the nightmare that was last year. But it's a new team. Like the team itself, like the players that are there now, don't give two craps about this 0-42 stuff because none of them were actually there for it. They have jobs because the team last year was so god awful. Like it's one of those things where you come into a job and the reason you got the job is because the person behind you before you screwed it up so bad they had to fire them. And so you got the job to replace them. Like, that is what happened. So, good for them. But they're going to lose some of their lovable loser status.
I mean, Ed, you say that, but, you're not always going to just have a 0-win season. And I don't think we're ever going to see another situation where someone's going to go 0-42 in a row. But,
Have you seen the Washington lineup?
Oh, I have. They'll win at least one game, and it'll be because of some weird contract thing with the two-way player, maybe. I don't know. But, you say they're going to lose fanfare, but, this is very relevant to our area. Now, there was a certain franchise that hadn't won a World Series in, 100-plus years that constantly had a losing record in consecutive seasons. They didn't really lose the fanfare.
Are you talking about the no-talent ass-clown Cubs?
Yeah, so, even if Shanghai, picks up a couple of wins and still finishes below 500, I don't think we're going to see, a huge dip in popularity or the underdog aspect of the team. I feel like that will get broken once they make a stage playoff.
The thing is they've also, you can already see that they've kind of lost some of the fanfare. Last year it was Shanghai was near the top of the, the bits donations and stuff like that. And now this year, are they even
blame the Fran and the pink and blue? That's what that is.
There's another Chinese team that's doing better. Let's see here. What place are they in? They're in 7th place. So they're behind Houston, the new pity party, Dallas Fuel, New York, the Spark, Atlanta, and the Gladiators. So it's you can even see through bits and donations, people are starting to fall off the Shanghai Dragon bandwagon. So, I mean, at least you're not the Florida Mayhem. Oh, they are in last place by a lot. They have 147,000 bits donated or whatever cheered for them, and they're in last place. The Atlanta Reign have 1.6 million. That's the difference between first and last. So
It's
it's
a pretty big differential there. And, I'm not surprised that Atlanta's in top, considering that, they also have some of the fastest selling merchandise in the Gears store as well. But anyways, let's take a look back at Stage 1, Week 2, into a couple of our takeaways. Now, I'll be honest, I wrote very bare notes on this, and I have quite a few, so I'm just going to quickly go over a couple of mine. So I want to take a look at the London Spitfire, who made the decision to move Bird Rain off of Zarya, and now he's playing the bench. So you have Prophet moving from Brigitte over to the Zarya, and then all of a sudden, Spitfire are actually looking like a competent team again. So I'm very excited to see how they're going to do moving forward. So we've seen how important that Zarya role is. We've seen a lot of damage done records being broken by a ton of Zarya players, which happened in this past week. And a Prophet, having been kind of like the jack of all trades, has to be the one to fit the mold to what the team needs. And he seems to be the perfect guy for the job. Another team that's kind of been in the rut, who a lot of the community is probably surprised by it, are the LA Valiant, who have not won a single game yet after 2 weeks this season. So part of this was the fact that there was who started at main support? Is it going to be Kuki, who was switching over from main tank? Is it going to be Custa, who is basically the poster boy of the LA Valiants? And we've seen both start, and both of them have looked pretty shaky. And I had to say, though, at the end of the day, the Valiant have so many good pieces, and it just does not feel right to me that they are sitting without a single win in the column. I don't know if it's primarily just due to the fact that Fate in this meta seems to have taken like a step back, but a lot of the other components in their team play aspect in the 3-3 meta has looked pretty good, but it just seems like there's a little bit of shakiness on the front line, and that's kind of been one of the things that's taken a big toll on them. We also got to see Violet from the San Francisco Shock make his debut this past week against Vancouver Titans. Violet, having just come in off of a suspension, put up monster fantasy Overwatch League points this past week. He also had some pretty ridiculous stats just normally. And, just a quick note, and I know we've been talking about this too in the past, Captain Planet was actually doing some stat Q&A. I think it was yesterday. I mean, it was the day prior, where people were asking him a bunch of hero-specific questions about the Overwatch League, statistically speaking, and there were a ton of good information there. Definitely go check it out. He was quote answering a lot of the tweets that were sent to him, and I know Violet was really kind of near or in the top 3 of a lot of the different Zenyatta sets, included Transcendent, Seedland, and all of that. So now we enter the aspect of, well, what is that going to mean for Sleepy? Well, Sleepy is more than likely right in the bench at this point. He can join Sinatra whenever he's there and not play in the Zarya role. And another team that I feel probably isn't getting the recognition still, that is looking really solid and is going to look even better this week, is Toronto Defiant. Now, Toronto Defiant are getting Neko back, former Boston Uprising flex support. And they had Aid, who is their main support player, playing flex support. So, let's look at the opposite end. We saw Elk play Zenyatta this past week for Fusion, and they looked like an absolute cluster F. They did not look like an actual Overwatch League team. It was almost kind of like watching, I'm not going to say ladder, we'll say open division. at times. They look shaky as hell. And now you're actually going to have Aid move to his actual position. You're going to bring in a fraggin' Zenyatta player. And you have just seen the very solid performances across that team. And Toronto is just kind of taking names so far. And they're 2-1. And they're really in a driver's seat. And I know they face New York Excelsior this week. And I'm really interested to see how exactly Toronto is going to do against one of the top 3 teams in the league. Because there's a lot of potential there, but that's kind of been a team that a lot of people have kind of been sleeping on so far, and it's going to be a really good test for them moving forward.
Okay, so those are your takeaways. I'm going to do some quick hits and not go too crazy in depth on my musings for the week. So for starters, the London Spitfire, the whole talk the first week that they couldn't run goats and they were falling went by the wayside because they just looked dominant. They looked like the Spitfire at the end of season 1. It was great. Yes, the Fusion looked bad. They looked bad because they lost what turned out to be the linchpin of their team. The linchpin of their team is not EQO. It's not Carpe. It's not Neptuno. It's not Sato. It's not, Poco. It's Boombox. They were without their linchpin for this week, and they lost to the Mayhem. They're not a bad team. The Chengdu Hunters and the Guangzhou Charge, the most fun teams to watch in the Overwatch League right now. If you can watch a match with them in it, watch a match with them in it. The Dallas Fuel is another one of those, I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, Dallas Fuel and the Hanzo Spark are the 2 teams where it's like, one match, you're going to look amazing. The next match, you're going to look like total crap. And I don't know which to think is going to come out in any given match. So those will always be interesting. The Seoul Dynasty still shows some of the best potential in Overwatch League. They just need to kind of wrap it all up together and play as a team. The Atlanta Reign, they look good. They do not look like a top 5 team to me. They just don't. They look like a good team. They're not a top 5 team to me. The Toronto Defiant are much better than I originally expected. I will say that. Ivy has looked amazing on Zarya. Like, that's the biggest thing about these teams where they come up where they crash. Like, your team is basically built on 2 things now in this meta. It's your Reinhardt and your Zarya. Like, your a good Zenyatta is good. A good Lucio is good. If you don't have a good Reinhardt and if you don't have a good Zarya, your team's done for. So, Atlanta, middle of the road. The Valiant are a better team than their losing record, their winless record. They have just gotten the shaft on who they actually play. Like, they played the Valiant in Toronto this week, Hanzo Spark last week. They played the Vancouver Titans and the Guangzhou Charge next week. Week 4, it's Philly and Houston, and then that's the whole stage. Like, that has to be the hardest schedule out of any of the teams in the Overwatch League. So I don't see them winning more than 1 to 2 matches, if that, for the rest of the stage, but they're a better team than we think. Boston Uprising, it's clear Fusions is the main tank, and you need to start him at the main tank. So I'm glad he's back. The Outlaws, yes, they beat the Spark. They still don't look good. Don't have faith in them. Paris is the best GOATS team easily in Overwatch League. But the second you don't run GOATS, Paris will crumble. Like, they're just not a good non-GOATS team. So you got that going. Vancouver Titans, I'm going to say it now. They have the best tank duo in Overwatch League. Janu and Bumper together, the sync and the teamwork that they have together is insane. It's insane. So they're one of the most fun teams to watch. So go watch them. And the San Francisco Shock. I mean, we learned a couple of things. Everyone counted Sinatra out because of all the DPS, but he's just hated. His Zarya, and I know you're going to give me that look right now, Totem. Sinatra's Zarya has been top 3, 4 in the league this year. It has. Top 5. Fine. Top 5. He's been top 5 in the league. No one expected that. But he's top 5 in the league this year in Zarya. Violet is a god among men. Like, Violet is on the same... No, screw it. I'll say it. Violet and Jonak are on the same level of dominance on Zenyatta. And we've only seen Violet in one map. Or one series. Like, Violet is that good. So watch Violet, watch Sinatra. If the San Francisco had any form of a flippant main tank, they would be really good. They would be top 3. It'd be New York, Vancouver, San Francisco. If they had a main tank, they just don't have a main tank right now. Like, it's bad. So those are my takeaways from week 2. I know it's a lot, but I didn't want to go super crazy in depth on like 20 different things.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's preview a couple of our favorite matches that are coming up this week in Stage 1, week number 3. All right. So I kind of broke this down based on the day for mine. And I did write down 5 matches that I am most hyped for. So we started on Thursday. We have the Shock going up against the Spark. And for me, this is really kind of like the battle between 2 inconsistent teams right now, because we've seen moments of greatness and then moments of absolute WTF, what are you doing type moments. So I don't know which side we're going to get on either side, and I'm just intrigued. And both of these teams are kind of in that position where they need to come out with the win. Like, you're basically in the position where to make the playoffs, you really need to be 4-3 or 5-2 or better at this point. So right now, just based on the fact that I've seen kind of like regression from the Spark front line, I'm leaning towards the Shock in that series. And, I'm expecting Violet to, stay true to his MVP performance here in the past week. Moving on to Friday, I'm looking forward to the LA Gladiators going up against the London Spitfire. So Spitfire, a team on the rebound. Gladiators are getting Decay, who turned to 18 today, as did Stratus. Stratus turned to 18. So, Decay coming in for the Gladiators. We still don't know what role he's going to play. Like, is he going to play the Zarya? Is he going to play Surefour? What's the situation going to be? I don't know, but there's a lot of hype behind Decay, and this is going to be a really good test for both of these teams, because you have Spitfire, who are looking better now that they've kind of pieced together the problem that they had. And the Gladiators, even in their losses, have looked very good. So it's just a matter of who's going to really come out on top in regards to primarily the Zarya role here. So it's going to be the K, Surefour, or, of course, Prophet on the Spitfire side. Saturday, we have Eternal versus the Reign, which is another interesting one. Reign threw a lot of different looks, as where Eternal run a lot of 3-3. So this could just come down to, well, if Eternal kind of like forces Atlanta to play 3-3, Eternal will probably have no problem taking that series. But I do not want to discredit what Dafran has done on the Zarya too, just due to the fact that we have seen a lot of that mechanical skill. But the Graviton Surge usage definitely concerns me in this series. I'm not that confident that the Reign will come out in top. And then, I gotta go with the obvious choice on Sunday, that being the NYXL versus the Dynasty match. I mean, you have 2 powerhouse teams, and NYXL have looked really good in their wins, and then they've also looked pretty beatable in their wins. So I feel like this one definitely has an upset potential, which to me is still weird to say upset potential when it comes to, another one of the Korean teams. I'm going to use it anyway. But I really want to see if we're going to kind of get like that Sombra v Sombra setup. Like, is Meko going to be playing a ton of D.Va? Is he going to be on the Sombra? How is Fisher going to stack up to Mono? It's going to be a good series all around, and I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Well, I did almost the same thing as you, as I kind of went day by day. And some of ours were the same, so I'll change up. Well, the two of them were the same. So on the first day, I wasn't going to say Shock versus Spark, but I'm going to go Seoul versus Boston Uprising. And it's going to be because of one matchup and one matchup only. I want to see Fissure versus Fusion. Like, two crazy aggressive Reinhardt tanks going head-to-head is always super fun to watch. So that's going to be good. I think Seoul will come out on top on this one, but I want to see more fusions because he's just an exciting player to watch, and he looks like a character from Up. I'm sorry. Like, I've been looking. I just remember.
It makes sense because he's on the Uprising.
Like, he
really
looks
put
like,
it together.
He looks like in 40, 50 years, or 60, 70 years, he'll be the old man from Up. He just looks that way. So, just say, on Friday, I'm going to go with Vancouver versus the Valiant because I think this is a trap game for Vancouver. Because, like we have said, the Valiant are a better team than what their record shows. And that's proven. They've basically gone to Mat 5 in so many matches. So this could be a trap game where Vancouver could lose this game. And honestly, I just want to see Bumper and Janu playing together as much as possible. On Saturday, you took my Paris Atlanta one. So I'm going to go with the dumpster. Sorry, I can't say dumpster fire because the Fuel are playing on Saturday, and I don't want to talk about them. I'm going with the bottom of the barrel teams. I'm interested in Florida versus Houston because, like, the Washington Justice are the worst team in the league. But I think it's pretty clear between everyone, Florida and Houston are the second and third worst teams. This battle will determine who's the second worst team in the Overwatch League. I personally think the Mayhem will pull this one out over the Outlaws, but it's going to be an interesting, hey, we're the worst. No, we're the worst. So they get that back and forth. And then on Sunday, I'm going with the Spark versus the Gladiators just because, well, I wanted to do NYXL versus Seoul. But I'll do the Gladiators versus Spark because it's the same reason for Vancouver versus the Valiant. This is a trap game for the Gladiators. The Spark have shown that they can be a top-tier team. It's just they're not consistently playing as a top-tier team. We don't know what's going to happen with Decay. Is it going to be hydration? Is it going to be Surefour that, or is it going to be Decay? Is it going to be Void? Is it going to be Bishu? We don't know what the Gladiators are going to be coming out with, so we don't know what to expect from them, and how well they play together. So could be a trap game for the Gladiators to lose to the Spark, and I hope they do lose to the Spark. I'm not going to pick them to lose to the Spark, though, if that makes sense. Like, I want the Spark to win, but this is just not one of those games. The betting and gambling side of me is like, well, play with your mind, not with your heart. So I think the Gladiators will win that one, but it will be a fun game.
All right, it's definitely a ton of good matches this week. And if you're doing pick'ems this week, good luck. Right? I mean, the first couple of weeks have been all over the place. And then when I look at the lineup for week 3, I cannot in any shape or form go into any day feeling I 100% have this down. Like, it's just not going to happen this week. And that's a scary thought after how my week 2 went. So, should be a good week nonetheless. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move into our main discussion for tonight, which is going to revolve around the PTR patch that was deployed on the public test room on February 26th. And yes, this one does include Baptiste, who we already technically talked about, so we're not going to go over Baptiste again. We are, however, going to go over literally everything else that was involved in this PTR patch. And if you have not seen the PTR patch notes, let me just tell you guys, it is a doozy. There is a lot of stuff. Like, a lot. Like, you might be thinking, how much is a lot? You have no idea. Like, this is absolutely flippin' ridiculous. So let's start from the top end.
All
so
right.
first up, let's talk a little bit about armor in Overwatch. And with armor, beam type damage is now reduced by 20% when hidden armor, as well as damage over time effects are no longer mitigated by armor. Okay, so, we're currently 3-3 meta. See a ton of Zarya, a lot of damage being done by Zarya, who, just so happens to have a beam type damage weapon.
Weird.
So it's just not going to be as effective against armor targets. So, might be a little bit of a nerf to a certain composition.
Would that be, I believe it's called Donkey? Yeah, Donkey. Yeah. People run Donkey nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go with that. Or could it be Boats? Oh, wait, no, that's when Baptize replaces Baguette, and it's going to be called Boats.
See, I don't know if it's going to be
Brigitte
that gets subbed out.
You have to get rid of Brigitte, you have to rename it. So you'll have Goats with Brigitte, and then you'll have Boats with Baptize. See? No?
I don't know where I'm going to go with that one. So on top of that, the damage over time effect one isn't like as big of a deal because you kind of look at the landscape right now. There's the Venomine and Dynamite. I honestly can't think of another one off the top of my head. That's a dot effect.
I can't think of one either. Oh, Torbjorn. Would Torbjorn? No.
The ultimate?
That just does more ticking damage the longer you're in it, so no. Yeah, I can't think of another one.
That was not as big. We also have damage boost now being applied when a projectile is fired, rather than when it hits a target.
With Baptize, that's actually kind of a big deal. Because with Baptize's ultimate, it doubles the damage when it goes through the shield. So if you're damage boosting, Diva rockets or whatever, before it goes through the shield, it's just going to damage boost it and then double the damage boosted damage. Yeah, I said that right. So this could, if Baptize becomes meta, this could bring back a Mercy main healer with a damage boost Baptize meta. Because could.
Here's the thing, then, right? He has his ability that prevents people from dying.
Well,
unless it's going to be to the point where, Mercy is just, I'm just going to forget left click and we're just going to damage boost people. And that'll be your primary beam.
Crazier things have happened. So, but it's interesting to say the least.
All right. Well, next up, we're going to take a look at knockback. And knockback distance is now going to be more consistent. A little bit more consistency is always good. And heroes that are flying can now be knocked back and slowed. Now, I do want to quickly sidetrack this because there's been a clip floated around Reddit in regards to slows and speeds in regards to a certain off-tank character in the game who, has this, speed boost ability in a mech, and I don't know if you've seen this clip, Ed, but the D.Va speed boost, because of this change, is absolutely absurd, and I cannot imagine that that's going to go through.
No,
well, at least
not.
with D.Va.
It's a bug. It has to be a bug. I mean, there's no way that they mean to make D.Va go, hey, you're going to use a speed boost, and then we're going to boost you on top of a speed boost with the speed boost on the side, so you can get across the map in 2.2 seconds. No, it's a bug. It has to be a bug.
That being said, though, I want to see how far a self-destruct can fly.
Oh my God.
With that bug.
You're like, all right, well, I launched my D.Va bomb from spawn, and it went past their spawn point. So I don't know what's going on now.
Yeah, it'd be like when they made that initial change to the Lucio wall riding when it had a speed boost, and you could glide across Eichenwald in 4.5 seconds.
Yep. So yeah, I don't know. This is nice. I actually like this change. Being able to, as Lucio or whoever, knock back a flying D.Va or a Mercy is very nice. Because there's nothing scarier than a D.Va that's boosting right at your face with defense matrix up and the missiles firing at you. Well, goodbye world. I'm gonna die now, but now you can boop them out of the way. So that's nice. I like this change. These are quality of life changes that are meant more for future balancing more than making the game more balanced right now, I think.
Yeah, we will get to the actual balance updates after this next quality of life change, which is dealing with sound. So we got a couple of new hit notifiers in regards to sound. So a new sound is going to play when you land a hit while damage boosted. So that's again going to deal with the new hero as well as the Mercy damage boost. Same with the Arista supercharger. Then a new sound is also going to play when you land a hit, but it doesn't do any damage. That one I'm a little bit thrown off by, because you figure there's going to be focus fire one way or another, so I don't know if you necessarily need the sound indicator in that regard. It's more of a situation where you only really need it if you're trying to finalize a kill, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the new sound plays when you land a hit, but it doesn't do any damage. I guess it could be something with that. Include D.Va defense matrixing an ability, or getting a Zarya bomb or something like that. You get a sound like that to know that it was eaten by D.Va.
Right. And maybe that would
be nice.
That might also even include the immortality field as well. If someone is at 40 health and then they don't drop below that.
Yeah, because because you can still hit. That's a misconception when you think of Baptize and the immortality shield. You think, okay, well, I can't hit them. No, you can still hit them. They just can't drop below a certain health number. So you can keep shooting and shooting and shooting, but then if you're shooting at them and it's not doing any damage because they hit that health threshold, then I guess you could be like, okay, well, now I don't need to keep shooting because it's pointless right now. But I don't know. It's a quality of life change that I don't think will have an effect on the game.
All right, well, we also have a slew of balance updates that we need to get through.
Good word usage, Totem. A slew.
There are, and I am not exaggerating, guys, literally just under half of the hero roster. There are 14 balance updates in regards to actual characters.
So
I've never seen this.
We will try and get through them as quick as possible because some are bigger than others. So.
Ed, I'll just ask for your quick take on it. I'll name it off, and then you give me your quick judgment on it.
Okay.
All right, so first up, we have Anna, and this is going to deal with her nano boost. They have the heal reduced from 300 to 250.
I don't get why the hell they did this. Like, it really doesn't do anything. They nerf Anna when she isn't overpowered, and her nano boost isn't overpowered. The only reason that they would do this is because they don't want it to be used as an emergency heal. And moving it from 300 to 250 is not going to change anything like that. It did nothing. It was a useless nerf that I don't think was needed in the game.
Next up, we have Doomfist buffs. So the Rise and Uppercut cooldown was reduced from 7 seconds to 6 seconds, as well as the Seismic Slam cooldown reduced from 7 seconds to 6 seconds.
Okay, two things with this. Yes, I think both of the cooldowns for those two abilities being reduced is nice because he seems to run more smooth now. I tried him out a little, but also screw Doomfist, and I hate him, and I don't think he should have any of his abilities buffed. So, but overall, it was a good change. It makes Doomfist feel more smooth, less downtime with him, really, and not like just waiting around for an ability. So this was a nice change for Doomfist, but I still hate it.
I will note, like, there was a changes a while ago where they kind of, like, cleaned up, like, the loss of air control. That was, like, really, like, put in Doomfist kind of a little bit over the top because of it. And, you know, this is kind of, like, just bringing him back a little bit, but it's not necessarily going to make him meta. So, next up, we have Hanzo. So, looking at the Sonic Arrow, the detection radius was increased from 7 meters to 9 meters.
Whatever. Like, it's going to be good in some situations, but it's not going to be truly noticeable when you're actually playing. You're not going to shoot a spot and be like, oh, thank God I have those extra 2 meters of Sonic Arrow. No, it's not going to be like that. I mean, it's nice, but it's not going to change anything with Hanzo.
Right, and like Overwatch League wise, we normally just see it for a scouting tool initially, and like King's Row and Route 66. Outside of that, we don't really get to see him all that much. Next up, we have Lucio, whose Sonic Amplifier Soundwave will now count towards offensive assists. So all of you Reddit Lucios out there, this one is for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, this will help, I'm assuming, will help more towards them building ultimates. And stuff like that. Like, it's, you know, it's a buff to Lucio. I don't think it's a massive buff to Lucio or anything like that. It's more of a quality of life change with Lucio. Yeah, it's something that should have been in there in the first place. Now it's actually just in the game. So, all
right. Well, you know, going back to that 2-2-2 composition that I mentioned earlier, let's look at the other part of that comp in McCree, who saw Fan the Hammer damage reduced from 55 to 50. Then the Deadeye damage per second was increased from 275 to 550 after locking onto targets for 2.5 seconds.
I love these changes to McCree. The Fan the Hammer was a little bit too strong, and it got nerfed enough where it's still super powerful, but not, oh my god, insane. The Deadeye is awesome. It allows you to take out bigger tanks without being a sitting duck. Because, like, to take out, like, tanks or heftier targets, you have to legit just sit there and wait for it to build up. And in that meantime, like, somebody will turn around and headshot you, and then you're ult wasted. So this allows you to ult and get it off quicker and try and take down some of those more beefy targets. So I love the Deadeye change. I think it's huge for McCree. I don't think it's gonna bring him back into the meta, but I think it's gonna seriously compete with why am I drawing a blank on her name? Just released. Ash. There you go. Like, it's going to be like, okay, now there's more of a reason to pick McCree over Ash in a lot of situations.
Next up, we have the Antichrist herself, Mei. So primary fire damage was increased from 2.25 to 2.75. So in damage numbers, that would be 45 damage per second. up to 55 DPS. And then the Ice Wall health damage, or health, not health damage, I don't know why I said that. Ice Wall health reduced from 500 to 400.
I mean, okay, so the primary fire damage increase is a nice change. Really, all it does is it switches it from being, okay, May's just going to right click and do damage to now May can do left click and damage just as well. So it's more like they just went away from spamming right click to holding down left click. The health reduced on the Ice Wall, okay, that's fine. I see nothing wrong with that. She is the Antichrist. Overall, I think it's a buff to May. So if Baptize becomes meta, May is going to get a lot more play. So this is good. I like this.
All right, well, next up we have probably Balance Change that will impact more, probably lower skill ratings. And this is to Moira. So the Biotic Grasp heal over time duration was increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds, with a total heal rate increase from 50 to 65.
I love this change, especially if you think the bunker meta could come around with Baptize. Like Moira healing, she's always been one of the best healers in the game, but she's always been hindered because of D.Va. Like her biotic orbs can be taken up by a D.Va defense matrix, and that is something that has just held her back. So they're kind of making her healing overpowered to compensate the risk of, okay, all you have to do is go D.Va and you make half of her abilities almost useless. I really like this. Like you said, in the lower levels, this is going to be ridiculous because in the lower levels, people aren't like, oh, they went Moira. I need to counter with D.Va. No, that's just not what's happening. They just don't switch, and they think they can beat it with a Widowmaker Hanzo comp. And, you know, she's going to be pumping out some serious effing heals. Even in GOATs, she will be crazy good in group healing. Just spraying her pee everywhere. I mean, let's just call it what everyone else in the world calls it. It's what it is. But the healing from 50 to 65 is pretty massive. So great change. I think this brings Moira back into the meta a little bit.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know Moira had a left click.
See? I hate you. You're one of them.
That's just because I play so much Zenyatta. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna frag out. And then when I'm out of the juice, you know, then
I'll do damage. Yeah.
Then you pee on people.
Yeah.
You know. Bring it back. You know, you're all good. All right. Well, next up, looking at Orisa, fusion driver movement speed penalty while firing was reduced from 50% to 30%.
Okay, so I actually played this a little bit in the PTR. She's so much smoother. Like, it's so nice. It's one of those things, one of those easy things to toy around with that make her feel that much better. They did it with D.Va a lot back in the day when trying to figure out her movement when she was firing, because at one point she was too slow moving around. They moved that around. They're going to do the same thing with Orisa, but Orisa feels a lot smoother now and can really, like, it feels less of a sitting lame duck than before. So it's nice. It's a great change to Orisa. Great change.
All right, next up we have Pharah, who saw her rocket launcher minimum explosion damage increase from 16.25 to 20.
I mean, this is pre-nerf damage from Pharah. Like, they nerfed her to 16.25, realized they nerfed her too much, bringing it back. It will be nice. Pharah still will only see situational, play. I don't think this is enough to consider her meta, but
Right.
It definitely helps. It really does help, especially with if you get a bunker, like a bunker group, because she can just rain down hell from above.
So next up, again, this is kind of going to like some really old numbers for this hero. Soldier 76, the pulse rifle damage is going to be increased from 19 to 20. So it was at 20 quite a while ago, so this is going back a ways. Sprint delay before you can fire the weapon after sprinting was reduced from 0.5 seconds to 0.3 seconds. And then his ultimate technical visor can now target Riptire as well as Batiste's immortality field.
I mean, these are nice changes. Do I think this brings Soldier 76 back? No. He's going to do more damage, but with as much emphasis as there is around shields and stuff like that nowadays, more and more Soldier 76 is not needed. They need to do a lot more to Soldier 76 to bring him back into the constant play. So it's a nice start. They still need to do more.
All right, next up we have a change to Sombra. Hack cooldown is reduced by half when hacking a health pack.
It's a quality of life thing. Like, some people may technically consider it a buff. Well, whatever. She's hacking a health pack for herself quicker. It's not like she's doing that in the middle of a fight to try and kill you or anything like that. Most of the time they hack a health pack on the back that their team can use to constantly go back and heal up rather quickly. So, and it only takes like 2 seconds. So it's 1 second instead of 2 seconds. Like, it's whatever. It's a quality of life thing. I'm fine with that.
All right, they're also making a couple changes to Torbjorn. So the base health has been increased by 50 armor, so that will give him a max of 250 health. And then he also tweaked the overload armor gain, reducing that from 150 to 100.
This is just tweaking of Torbjorn. Makes him a little bit more viable without having to hit his E ability, but also makes his E ability weaker. Does nothing to his should he be played or not. He's still not a good hero to play. So
unless you're Defran.
But yeah, it's nice, but it's one of those changes that you're going to forget in 2-3 days and not even realize it was in the game.
All right, we got 2 more heroes here. So next up is Widowmaker. Both of these are in regards to her Infrasight ability. So Infrasight will reveal enemy health bars, and then it will also now be cancelled on death.
I don't know how to take this. So revealing the enemy health bars is super nice for everyone involved. It's kind of like an ultimate that also uses Sombra's passive, being able to see people under half health through walls and stuff like that. That's nice, but being canceled on death, that's kind of a nerf to it. That is a nerf to it. So, if Widowmaker dies or anything like that, it becomes a wasted ult. So, it's not going to change Widowmaker's play style at all or pick rate or anything like that. It's just going to be an inconvenience, to say the least.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have what is going to be the biggest change, at least if you're the Chengdu Hunters, and it's the Wrecking Ball, whose adaptive shield will no longer cancel rolled mode.
This is actually a huge change. This is a pretty big change. The first thing that popped into my head is, okay, this makes stalling on the point as Wrecking Ball so much easier now. Mm-hmm. You're going to be able to stall so much longer as Wrecking Ball because you'll be able to be swinging around, get that shield up, get the cooldown started, hit it again. They're going to have to literally use ultimates to kill you just so the other team doesn't make it back in time. So I'm interested to see where, like, this is one of those minor changes to a character that could have very massive impacts to the meta and things like that, because this is a huge change. Especially
all right, and yeah, and that is every single hero update we have this patch. I know it was a lot.
and they also said there's probably going to be more.
Possibly. But I have to say, when I first saw these patch notes, my only thought was, okay, we tried to nerf goats multiple times across armor changes, a lot of Brigida changes, and then they're like, well, people are still playing 3-3. Okay, what's the next step? Buff literally everyone else.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, they to get rid of goats, they nerfed the wrong character. Truly, they did. Like, they nerfed Baguette into the ground because she is not viable outside of goats. Like, she's trash outside of goats. When in actuality, you probably should have been nerfing. Done some nerfs to Reinhardt, done some to Zarya, probably taken the nerf bat to Diva. But now we're starting to get this power creep. Like you said, like, okay, we have to buff literally everyone to get them up to the same level as some of our new heroes. So who knows? But it's a constant struggle all games have. Every game has power creep. It's just a matter of how you handle it.
Absolutely. So, again, this is all available to test on the PTR. If past PTR updates are any indicator, all of these are going to get patched straight to live whenever they do get patched to live. But definitely go check it out. Go try the new hero. Let us know what you think of Batiste and his toolkit, where you think he's going to fit in the meta, all of that good stuff. Which buff you think is the biggest out of all these, and which ones you're not really feeling. But with that being said, guys, I know we are already over that 2-hour mark, so we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So one of the best ways to help us is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. I'm going to check really quick as I'm talking to see if there is a new review up. But getting a review is one of the best ways to help us, and looks like we do not have a new one yet. But we're always looking for ways to improve the show to make for a better listening experience for you guys. We also have Overwatch Recall. That is our content creation hub featuring a ton of different Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcasts available on our website. Then every Sunday night, we release episodic listens of everything that was released in the past week. So to find that, be sure to follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OW Recall. If you guys would like to support our podcast network further, you can do so by pledging to our Patreon. So we have tiers starting at just $1. And it goes like all the way up to $10. We got like AMAs, we got VOD reviews. You can submit topics for the podcast. We have like specific polls just for Patreon and a couple of other stuff. So go check that out. Any support is greatly appreciated, regardless of what tier you pledge towards. But all of that goes directly to supporting our podcast network, whether it is, Libsyn fees, if we ever go over data, which can happen, just because, this podcast, it primarily happens on this specific podcast because we kind of do 2-hour shows every week.
I kind of go off on rants.
Sometimes there's like 4 or 5 episodes in a month.
I go on rants a lot. It just happens.
It is what it is, Ed. But outside of that, I do quickly want to note that, Contenders is right around the corner. And I know that there is a definite need for Contenders coverage. The problem is, and Ed, I know you and I have talked about this, like really right now, so much of our time is in the Overwatch League. That's one of our primary focuses outside of what is happening in the game. And in the past, we kind of dabbled in Contenders NA coverage, and same goes for Contenders Korea over for OWLN. And unfortunately, like with our current format, there's really not any wiggle room to kind of like add like in-depth discussion on Contenders level. So what I would really like to do is either try to bring another Path to Pro podcast into our network, or if there is anyone interested out there in starting one to join our podcast network family, definitely hit me up. We would love to have at least some tier 2 presence on OWL network. So if you have any interest in that, please let me know. But with that being said, Ed, we have a number of different ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can contact our show?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We do have a website, and that is owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube as well, so youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network, where we release videos on everything from our weekly power rankings to Spider doing everything from new maps to new heroes to all our live broadcasts. So go check that out over there. We are also on Discord, discord.me/OWLNshow, where we're pretty active during the Overwatch League, like chit-chatting in chats. We're always there to be messaged. So come join us there. We do stream live. We are presently on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. So we are a Twitch affiliate. So come help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast does stream pretty regularly. So Monday nights, we have the Overwatch League Network, which is at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have our fantasy podcast that me and Totem and Blazing Bob and Julian Goulian /Ramses do on Tuesdays, and that's at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we have this show currently, Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then when the Overwatch League is not on, we'll probably do host streams Thursdays, Fridays. But since it's on, we will not be doing them. And then, as always, as Totem mentioned before, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So come help support us over there. You can reach me personally, Edanar, on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm over on Twitter at TumblyDrunkCTR, and if I'm live on Twitch, guys, of course, I'm here Monday through Wednesday on all of our network podcasts, and, you can find me then. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get the heck out of Dodge. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us again tonight on Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 149, and next week's going to be a big week. And, I wish all this stuff dropped next week because it would have been more fitting of, like, the episode number. But it is what it is. We'll figure something out for next week. Whatever that's going to be, I don't know yet. But, 150 is...
I'll get my crown.
No? Sure.
No.
I mean, you can do whatever, Ed. Like, if you want to plan that out, by all means, you can do that.
Iron Throne? No?
Yeah. Well, we'll see whether or not you go 3-0 again this week. But with that being said, guys, we hope to see you back on Monday for our next episode of Overwatch League Network. And if not, then we'll see you on the next one, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.